The Great Hall of the Galactic Federation was silent. 1,047 species sat in their designated seats, their various forms of eyes, sensors, and perception organs all focused on the central platform. Ambassador Crix Veln of the Zorathi Empire clicked his mandibles nervously. This was not supposed to happen. This was never supposed to happen. On the platform stood a single human. She was not tall by galactic standards. She was not covered in armored plates like the Chronax. She did not have the telepathic abilities of the Mindori. She could not survive in the vacuum of space like the Vethians. She was simply Maya Chen, a former schoolteacher from a small town in what humans called Canada, and she had just been elected as the Supreme Galactic Representative. The vote had been counted 3 times. The results were the same each time. Out of 1,047 species, 912 had voted for the human candidate. It was the largest majority in the history of the Galactic Federation. It was also the most confusing. Crix Veln leaned toward his aide. "How did this happen?" he whispered, though his species did not truly whisper but rather vibrated at a lower frequency. His aide, a young Zorathi named Plix, checked his data tablet. "Sir, the records show that humanity has only been part of the Federation for 47 standard years. They are one of the youngest species in our organization." "I know this," Crix Veln said with irritation. "What I want to know is how a species that still fights among themselves, that still has not achieved full planetary unity, that still eats other living creatures for sustenance, has somehow convinced 912 advanced civilizations to give them control of the entire Federation." Maya Chen stood calmly on the platform as the announcement echoed through the hall. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain blue suit that was completely unremarkable by galactic standards. There was nothing about her appearance that suggested power or authority. And yet, when she began to speak, every being in the hall listened. "Thank you for your trust," she said. Her voice was translated by the Universal Communication System into 1,047 languages simultaneously. "I know that many of you are confused. I know that some of you are angry. I know that others are afraid. These are all reasonable responses." She paused and looked around the great hall. Her eyes, soft brown and entirely ordinary by human standards, somehow seemed to meet every gaze at once. "I am not the smartest being in this room. The calculants can process information 1,000,000 times faster than my brain. I am not the strongest. The Chronax could crush me with a single limb. I am not the oldest or the wisest. The eternal elders have seen galaxies born and die. I do not have special powers. I cannot read minds or control matter or bend the laws of physics." She smiled, and it was a strange smile. It was warm and sad and knowing all at once. "But I am human, and today you chose a human to lead you. Perhaps it is time to explain why humanity believes you made the right choice." In the Zorathi section of the hall, Crix Veln settled back in his seat. He had voted against the human. His entire species had voted against her. They were one of only 135 species who had done so. Now he wanted to understand what he had missed. Maya Chen began to tell a story. It was not the story he expected. 47 years ago, when humanity first encountered the Galactic Federation, we were terrified. We had dreamed of the stars for centuries. We had imagined aliens as either saviors or destroyers. What we found instead was simply people, different from us in form but not so different in nature. You had your conflicts, your politics, your problems. You were not gods. You were not monsters. You were neighbors. She clasped her hands behind her back and began to walk slowly across the platform. "In those first years, we tried very hard to prove ourselves worthy of membership. We shared our technology, which was primitive by your standards. We offered our art, our music, our stories. We volunteered for dangerous missions. We tried to show that we could be useful. But we also did something else, something that confused many of you. We listened. We asked questions. We wanted to understand not just how your civilizations worked, but why. We wanted to know what you feared, what you hoped for, what you regretted. We wanted to know your stories." In the section reserved for the Mindori, the telepathic species exchanged thoughts of surprise. The humans had always been interesting to them precisely because they could not be read easily. Human minds were chaotic, unpredictable, filled with contradictions. Most telepathic species found humans exhausting to be around. But the Mindori had noticed something else. When humans talked to you, they really talked to you. They gave you their full attention in a way that few species did. Maya continued her speech. "Over the past 47 years, I have personally met with representatives from over 600 species. I did not do this because I had a plan. I did not do this because I wanted power. I did this because I was curious. I wanted to understand." She stopped walking and faced the assembly directly. Do you know what I learned? I learned that the Zorathi Empire, which controls 73 star systems and has the most powerful military in the outer regions, is afraid. They are afraid because their population is declining and they do not know why. They have kept this secret for 200 years. In the Zorathi section, Crix Realm went very still. No one knew this. No one outside the highest levels of the Zorathi government knew this. I learned that the Calculans, who are considered the most logical beings in the galaxy, have developed what can only be called religion. They believe that mathematics itself is conscious, and that they are expressions of its will. They are afraid to tell anyone because they think it will make other species trust their calculations less. In the Calculan section, there was no visible reaction. But if one could see the rapid data exchanges happening between the crystalline beings, one would see chaos. I learned that the Eternal Elders, who are millions of years old and have seen empires rise and fall, are lonely. They have lived so long that most beings seem like mayflies to them. They have stopped forming connections because they cannot bear to watch another friend die. Maya Chen looked around the hall once more. I know your secrets, not because I spied on you, but because you told me. You told me over meals and during long voyages and in quiet moments when you thought no one important was listening. You told me because I asked, and because I cared, and because humans have learned something important over our short and violent history. She raised her voice slightly, and it echoed through the vast chamber. Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone, from the smallest microbe civilization to the oldest galactic empire, wants someone to see them, really see them, not as enemies to be defeated or resources to be exploited or puzzles to be solved, but as beings with their own fears and hopes and dreams. This is what humanity offers the Galactic Federation. Not strength, not technology, not wisdom. We offer attention. We offer curiosity. We offer the simple but powerful act of asking, "How are you?" and actually wanting to know the answer. In the Great Hall, there was silence. Then slowly, something began to happen. The Chronax, massive armored beings who were famous for their silence and their war record, began to pound their forelimbs against their chest plates. It was their species' form of applause. The sound was like thunder rolling through the chamber. Other species joined in with their own expressions of approval. The Vethians changed colors in patterns of appreciation. The Mindori broadcast waves of emotional support that even non-telepathic species could vaguely sense. The Calculans processed the speech and found no logical flaws in the argument. Even Crix Realm, despite himself, found his mandibles clicking in the Zorathi expression of respect. The human schoolteacher from Canada had just explained why 912 species had voted for her. And somehow, against all logic, it made sense. But Maya Chen was not finished. She raised her hand and the hall fell silent again. I have not told you these secrets to embarrass anyone or to show off my knowledge. I have told you because this is exactly what I plan to do as Supreme Galactic Representative. I plan to listen. I plan to understand. I plan to help us see each other clearly. The Galactic Federation has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, we have prevented countless wars, established trade routes across the galaxy, and created a framework for cooperation between species that could easily have destroyed each other. This is a remarkable achievement. But let us be honest with each other. The Federation has also failed. We have failed to stop the slow decay of the outer colonies. We have failed to address the growing economic gap between core worlds and frontier systems. We have failed to create a true sense of unity among our member species. Most of the time, we simply avoid each other's problems and hope they will go away. She paused, and her expression became serious. They will not go away. The challenges facing our galaxy are growing, not shrinking, and we cannot face them if we do not trust each other. We cannot trust each other if we do not understand each other, and we cannot understand each other if we do not take the time to listen. This is my promise to you. As Supreme Galactic Representative, I will listen. I will learn. I will try to understand. And I will do everything in my power to help us become not just a federation of convenience, but a true community of beings who care about each other. Maya Chen bowed her head slightly, a human gesture of respect and humility. Thank you for your trust. I will try to be worthy of it. The applause this time was overwhelming. It came from all directions, in all forms, expressing approval in 1,000 different ways. The human who should not have been elected, who represented a species barely out of its infancy by galactic standards, had just given the best acceptance speech in Federation history. Crix Realm found himself wondering if he had made a mistake in voting against her. He found himself wondering what secrets the humans might already know about his own private fears and concerns. He found himself wondering if perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. He did not know it yet, but he was right. The story of Maya Chen, the first human Supreme Galactic Representative, was only beginning, and it would be a story that changed everything. 3 standard months after Maya Chen took office, the first crisis arrived. It came in the form of a distress signal from the Nexari homeworld, located in a distant arm of the galaxy where few species bothered to travel. The Nexari were not a powerful species. They were small, insect-like beings who had achieved interstellar travel only 200 years ago. They had joined the Federation more for protection than for any desire to participate in galactic politics. Most species forgot they existed. But their distress signal was urgent. A massive asteroid field was moving toward their system at unusual speed. Their scientists had calculated that within 6 standard months, their sun would be surrounded by debris. Their planet would become uninhabitable. Their species would die. The Galactic Federation had protocols for this kind of situation. Emergency aid could be requested. Resources could be allocated. Evacuation plans could be developed. But these protocols took time. They required approval from multiple committees. They involved lengthy debates about resource allocation and responsibility. The Nexari did not have time. Maya Chen called an emergency session of the Federation Council within hours of receiving the distress signal. The council chamber, smaller than the Great Hall but still impressive, filled quickly with representatives from the major powers. Krixveln of the Zorathi was there, as were representatives from the Calculans, the Kronax, the Mindori, and dozens of other influential species. The human stood at the center of the chamber and waited for silence. When it came, she spoke simply. The Nexari will die unless we act immediately. I am calling for an emergency suspension of standard protocols. I am asking for volunteers to assist with evacuation and asteroid diversion. I am asking for this to happen now, not in 6 months when the committees have finished their debates. A Zorathi representative stood. Supreme Representative, with respect, you cannot simply suspend protocols. The rules exist for a reason. If we abandon procedure every time there is an emergency, the entire system will collapse. Maya nodded. I understand your concern. Please tell me how many species have gone extinct while waiting for Federation committees to make decisions. The chamber went quiet. It was a question no one liked to think about. The human continued. I am not asking you to abandon the rules forever. I am asking you to recognize that sometimes speed matters more than procedure. The Nexari are not a powerful species. They have no military value. They control no important resources. By the standard calculations that usually drive Federation decisions, they are not worth saving. She looked around the room, meeting eyes and sensor arrays and perception organs. But they are people. They are billions of beings who love their children and fear death and hope for the future. They are members of this Federation who trusted us to protect them. If we let them die because we were too busy following rules, what does that say about us? A Calculan representative spoke, its crystalline form pulsing with light as it communicated. The mathematical probability of successful asteroid diversion is low given current resource allocation. The logical choice is to focus on evacuation. However, current transport capacity within range is insufficient to evacuate the Nexari population within the time frame. The most efficient outcome is partial evacuation of genetically diverse sample population. You mean let most of them die and save a few for breeding purposes? Maya asked. That is a simplified but accurate summary, the Calculan confirmed. No, Maya said. The word was simple, but it echoed through the chamber. No, she repeated. That is not acceptable. I will not tell a mother that her children cannot be saved because they did not make the genetic lottery. I will not tell a community that their elders must be left behind because they are not reproductively useful. We are better than this. We have to be better than this. A Kronax commander stood. The massive armored being was famous for its role in the border wars 2 centuries ago. Human representative. My people are warriors. We do not involve ourselves in rescue missions, but I find myself curious. What would you have us do? We have ships, yes, but we cannot fight asteroids. Maya turned to face the Kronax directly. She showed no fear, though the being could have killed her with a casual swipe of its limb. You have the largest fleet in this sector. Your ships are fast and heavily armored. I am asking you to use those ships to transport Nexari civilians to safety. I am asking the greatest warriors in the galaxy to become the greatest rescuers in the galaxy. The Chronix commander was silent for a long moment. Then it made a sound that the translator struggled to interpret. Finally, it rendered the sound as laughter. Human, you are either very brave or very foolish. My commanders would consider this a waste of military resources. They would say we are weakening ourselves for no strategic gain. And what would you say? Maya asked. Another long pause. I would say that the Chronix have been warriors for so long that we have forgotten how to be anything else. Perhaps it is time to remember. I will bring this request to my people. I make no promises, but I will bring it. The discussion continued for hours. Species that had never cooperated before found themselves considering joint operations. Resources that had been jealously guarded were offered for the emergency. Ships that had been built for war were volunteered for rescue. Not everyone agreed. The Zorathi representative argued that the operation was too expensive, too risky, too likely to set a dangerous precedent. But Krixveln, sitting in the back of the chamber, noticed something interesting. The more the Zorathi representative argued against the plan, the more other species seemed to support it. It was as if opposing Maya Chen had become politically costly. When the vote was finally called, the emergency measures passed by a large margin. The largest humanitarian operation in Federation history was about to begin. After the session ended, Krixveln approached Maya Chen. The human was gathering her materials, looking tired but determined. Supreme Representative, he said, using the formal Zorathi clicking patterns for respect. May I speak with you privately? Maya nodded. Of course, Ambassador, what can I do for you? They walked together to a small side chamber. Krixveln made sure they were alone before speaking. You mentioned something during your acceptance speech, about the Zorathi population decline. Maya's expression became careful. Yes. How did you know? This information is classified at the highest levels. Not even our allies are aware of it. The human was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Ambassador, do you remember 3 years ago when your niece was stationed on the diplomatic vessel Starward? Krixveln felt surprise. Yes, she was a junior communications officer. I was on that vessel for 6 months during a cultural exchange program. Your niece and I became friends. She told me about her family, about growing up on the Zorathi homeworld, about her hopes and fears. One night, when she had consumed perhaps too much of your species' traditional drink, she told me about her greatest fear, that she would never have children, not because she did not want them but because something was wrong, because all of her generation was having trouble reproducing. Because the Zorathi were dying, and no one would tell them why. Krixveln was silent. His mandibles clicked softly, a sign of deep distress in his species. I did not share this information with anyone, Maya continued. I did not use it for political advantage. I mentioned it in my speech only to make a point about understanding. But now I will ask you something, Ambassador. Ask. Why have the Zorathi not asked for help? The Federation has species with advanced biological knowledge. The Mindori can detect subtle genetic problems. The Calculans could analyze population data and identify patterns. Why suffer in secret? Krixveln struggled to answer. The concept was difficult to explain to an outsider. We are Zorathi. We are proud. We have been a great power in this galaxy for 10,000 years. To admit weakness, to ask for help, it would be shameful. Our enemies would use it against us. Our allies would lose respect for us. Maya nodded slowly. And yet, while you protect your pride, your people continue to decline. In another few centuries, there may be no Zorathi left to feel proud or ashamed. You speak difficult truths, human. I speak them because I care about your people, Ambassador. Not as strategic assets or potential enemies or political allies, but as people. Your niece is a good person. She deserves to have children if she wants them. Your species deserves to survive. She reached out and, in a gesture that was strange by Zorathi standards but clearly meant kindly, touched his forelimb gently. Let me help you. Let the Federation help you. Not publicly, not with great announcements that wound your pride. Quietly, privately, between friends who trust each other. Krixveln looked at this small, fragile human who somehow seemed to carry the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. He thought about his niece, about his people, about thousands of years of Zorathi pride. Then he made a decision that would have been unthinkable just a few months ago. Very well, Supreme Representative, I will trust you. Please help my people. Maya Chen smiled, and it was the warmest expression Krixveln had ever seen on any face of any species. Thank you, Ambassador. I will not betray your trust. In that small chamber, far from the great debates and political maneuvering, something important had changed. A bridge had been built between two species who had always been rivals, and it had been built not with weapons or treaties or trade agreements, but with simple human kindness. The Nexari evacuation was already underway. The Zorathi crisis was being addressed in secret, and Maya Chen, the schoolteacher from Canada, was beginning to show the galaxy what humanity truly had to offer. The news networks of 1,000 worlds were paying attention. Something was happening in the Galactic Federation, and no one was quite sure what it meant. The Nexari evacuation took 4 months. In the end, not a single Nexari was left behind. Every man, woman, child, and egg sac was transported to safety on temporary colony worlds, while their scientists worked on asteroid diversion. The operation involved ships from 47 different species, including the entire Chronax First Fleet, which had never before been used for non-combat purposes. It was the largest cooperative humanitarian effort in galactic history, and it worked. But more importantly, something changed during those 4 months. Species that had never trusted each other found themselves working side by side. Chronax warriors discovered that they were surprisingly good at comforting frightened Nexari children. Calculan engineers found creative solutions to transportation problems that pure logic had declared impossible. Zorathi commanders, who had initially refused to participate, eventually sent 3 cruisers after Krixveln made a personal appeal. Maya Chen was everywhere during the operation. She visited refugee camps, coordinated logistics, resolved disputes between species, and somehow found time to learn the names of Nexari family leaders and remember which evacuation transport each community had been assigned to. She slept perhaps 2 hours a night and ate whenever someone handed her food. Her human colleagues worried about her health. "You're going to burn out," her assistant Marcus warned her. "No one can keep up this pace." Maya just smiled. The Nexari are keeping up this pace too. They're leaving their homes, their history, everything they've ever known. The least I can do is be present for them. When the last transport lifted off from the Nexari homeworld, carrying the final group of evacuees to safety, Maya Chen was on board. She sat with an elderly Nexari who had refused to leave until the very end. "Why did you stay?" Maya asked through the translator. The old Nexari made a chittering sound that meant sadness mixed with acceptance. "I was born in that valley. My parents are buried there. My first child took her first steps on that red sand. I wanted to see it one last time." Maya nodded. "I understand. When humans had to leave places we loved, we felt the same way. We wrote songs about it, told stories, made art." "What happened to those places?" "Some were destroyed, some were forgotten, but the songs and stories survived. As long as someone remembers, the place is never truly gone." The old Nexari was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out with one of her many limbs and touched Maya's hand. "You are a strange creature, human. You have no exoskeleton to protect you, no venom to defend yourself, no wings to escape danger. And yet, of all the species in the galaxy, you are the one who came to sit with me as I said goodbye to my home." "I'm glad I could be here," Maya said simply. 6 months later, the Nexari crisis was resolved. Their scientists, working with Federation support, had successfully diverted the asteroid field. Their homeworld was safe. Their people could return. The celebration that followed was broadcast across the galaxy. Nexari danced in their traditional patterns while representatives from dozens of species watched. The Chronax commander, who had volunteered his fleet, was given the Nexari Medal of Gratitude, the highest honor their species could bestow. He accepted it with visible emotion, which no one had thought Chronax could feel. Maya Chen received nothing. She had asked the Nexari not to honor her. "This was not about me," she told their leaders. "This was about the Federation finally acting like what it was always supposed to be, a community that cares for its members." But the galaxy remembered, and when the next crisis came, 6 months after that, the response was different. A plague had broken out on the frontier worlds of the Eternal Elders. The ancient beings who had lived for millions of years and seen civilizations rise and fall were dying. Their immune systems, evolved for a different era of the universe, could not fight the new pathogen. In the past, the Federation might have debated for years about how to respond. The Eternal Elders were not popular. Their long lives made them seem alien even to other aliens. They rarely participated in galactic politics and often made other species uncomfortable with their casual references to events that had occurred before most civilizations existed. But this time, the response was immediate. Ships carrying medical supplies and research teams were dispatched within days. The Mindori, whose telepathic abilities made them excellent at understanding the strange thought patterns of the Elders, volunteered hundreds of healers. The calculans devoted enormous computational resources to analyzing the plague and developing treatments. The crisis was resolved in 3 months. Fewer than 100 elders died, out of a population of millions. It was a tragedy, but it could have been so much worse. And this time, something even more remarkable happened. The Eternal Elders, who had always been distant and detached, sent a delegation to the Federation Council. Their speaker, a being so old that it remembered the formation of the Federation itself, addressed the assembly. "We have watched the younger species for a very long time," the elder said, its voice like wind through ancient stones. "We have seen you fight and build and destroy and rebuild. We have often despaired. We have often wondered if the universe would be better without you." The chamber was silent. No one had ever heard an elder speak so directly. "But in recent months we have seen something new. We have seen species who were enemies learn to work together. We have seen warriors become rescuers. We have seen the powerful help the weak without asking anything in return. We have seen hope." The elder turned to face Maya Chen, who sat in the Supreme Representative's chair. "Human, you have only been among the stars for a moment of cosmic time. Your species is young and chaotic and unpredictable, but you have reminded us of something we had forgotten. You have reminded us that the universe is not just physics and chemistry and inevitable decay. The universe is also compassion. The universe is also choice. The universe is also the decision to care about someone simply because they exist." The elder paused, and for a moment its ancient form seemed to shimmer. "We have been alone for a very long time. We stopped making friends because we could not bear to watch them die. But perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the friendship is worth the loss. Perhaps the connection is worth the pain." The elder made a gesture that the translators struggled to interpret. Finally, they rendered it as, "Thank you." In the great hall there was not applause, but something deeper, a sense of shift, a feeling that the galaxy had just become a slightly different place. Maya Chen bowed her head in acknowledgement, but when she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. Later, when asked about this moment, she would say simply, "They had been alone for millions of years. Can you imagine that loneliness? And they thanked us for ending it. That's the most humbling thing anyone has ever said to me." But the Federation was not done changing. Over the next year, crisis after crisis was met with cooperation instead of indifference. A trade dispute between 3 species was resolved through mediation rather than economic warfare. A territorial conflict that had been simmering for centuries was finally settled through negotiation. A species on the verge of civil war received Federation peacekeepers who helped negotiate a new constitution. Not every problem was solved. Not every conflict was resolved. The galaxy was still a complicated place full of competing interests and ancient grudges, but something fundamental had shifted. The Federation was beginning to act like a real community. And at the center of it all was Maya Chen, working tirelessly, listening to everyone, remembering names and faces and stories, building connections one conversation at a time. "How do you do it?" Marcus asked her one evening, as she reviewed reports from a dozen different sectors. "How do you keep track of all these beings, all these problems, all these needs?" Maya smiled. "I don't keep track of them, I care about them. When you care about someone, you remember them. It's not a skill, it's just attention, presence, being fully there when you're with someone. But there are trillions of beings in the Federation. You can't care about all of them." "No," Maya agreed. "But I can care about the ones I meet, and I can care about the idea of all of them. I can hold in my mind the fact that every being in this galaxy is someone's child, someone's friend, someone's hope for the future. I can remember that they're all real, even when I'll never meet them." Marcus shook his head. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," Maya admitted. "But it's also wonderful. Do you know what the opposite of caring is? It's not hate, it's indifference. It's looking at someone and not seeing them. It's treating them as a statistic or a problem or an obstacle. That's how most governments work. That's how most bureaucracies function. They have to because there's too much to deal with, too many needs to meet." She set down her data tablet and looked at her assistant directly. "But what if we didn't have to work that way? What if we could build systems that see people instead of statistics? What if we could create a federation that actually cares about its members? Can that really work at this scale?" Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I don't know, but I think we have to try, because the alternative is a galaxy full of beings who are technically connected but actually alone. And I've seen what that loneliness does. I've seen it in the Eternal Elders, who lived so long they forgot how to love. I've seen it in the Zorathi, who were so proud they couldn't ask for help even when their species was dying. I've seen it in species after species. hiding their fears and their weaknesses because they were afraid of what others might think. She picked up her data tablet again and returned to her work. If being a human in the galaxy means anything, it means showing that there's another way, that we don't have to be alone, that caring about each other is possible, even across impossible distances and fundamental differences. Marcus watched her work for a moment longer. Then he went back to his own tasks, thinking about what she had said. He had worked in galactic politics for 20 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched great leaders come and go, but he had never met anyone like Maya Chen. And he was beginning to think that the galaxy had never met anyone like humans. 2 years into Maya Chen's term as Supreme Galactic Representative, something unprecedented happened. A new species asked to join the Federation. This was not unusual in itself. New species joined regularly as they developed interstellar travel and made contact with the greater galactic community. But this species was different. They called themselves the Vrix. They were a machine intelligence, artificial minds that had been created by an organic species millions of years ago. Their creators had long since gone extinct, but the Vrix had continued, evolving and changing and spreading across a small cluster of stars at the edge of the galaxy. Machine intelligences had never been admitted to the Federation. It was not exactly forbidden, but it had never happened. There were too many concerns, too many fears. What if they tried to convert organic minds to digital form? What if they decided to optimize the galaxy according to some inhuman logic? What if they saw biological beings as inefficient and tried to eliminate them? The debate in the Federation Council was fierce. Species that had cooperated during the Nexari crisis now found themselves on opposite sides. The Calculans, who were themselves partly artificial, argued for acceptance. The Chronax, who valued physical strength and biological purity, argued against. The Mindori could not read the Vrix minds and were frightened by this. The Zorathi saw strategic implications and were suspicious. Maya Chen listened to all the arguments. She read all the reports. She studied everything known about the Vrix and their history, and then she did something that surprised everyone. She went to visit them. "This is dangerous," Krixvelm warned her. He had become something of an advisor to her over the past 2 years, ever since she had helped his species in secret. "We do not know what they want. We do not know how they think. They could copy your mind, destroy your ship, do anything." Maya nodded. "All true, but we also don't know what they fear, what they hope for, what they dream about, if they dream at all. I can't vote on their membership without understanding them. Send a probe, send an android, send anyone but yourself. No, they need to know that the Federation takes them seriously. They need to know that we're willing to take risks to understand them. If I send a machine to talk to machines, what message does that send?" Krixvelm clicked his mandibles in frustration, but he did not try to stop her. He had learned, over the past 2 years, that there was no point in trying to stop Maya Chen when she had decided to do something. The journey to Vrix space took 3 weeks. Maya traveled in a small diplomatic vessel with a crew of 7. She used the time to study everything available about the Vrix, which was not much. They had only made contact with the Federation 5 years ago. Most of their history was unknown. When she arrived at their primary world, she found something unexpected. The Vrix world was not a gleaming machine paradise. It was not covered in factories or data centers or the geometric perfection that she had imagined. Instead, it was a garden. Forests covered the continents. Rivers wound through valleys. Mountains rose into cloudy skies. Animals moved through the wilderness, creatures that looked almost biological but moved with too much precision to be natural. And among all of this, the Vrix lived. They came in many forms: humanoid robots, floating orbs, insect-like crawlers, massive structures that looked like living buildings. They had not created a world of pure efficiency. They had created a world of beauty. A delegation met Maya's ship when it landed. Their spokesperson was a humanoid form with a face that seemed designed to be as non-threatening as possible. Soft features, gentle curves, warm colors. "Welcome, Supreme Galactic Representative," it said. "We are honored by your visit. We are also surprised. No organic being has ever come to our world before." "Thank you for receiving me," Maya said. "I wanted to meet you directly, to understand who you are." "Why?" The question was simple but genuine. "We have submitted all required documentation. We have answered all formal inquiries. What more can a personal visit accomplish?" Maya smiled. "I find that documents never tell the whole story. I wanted to see your home. I wanted to see how you live. I wanted to understand what matters to you." The Vrix spokesperson was quiet for a moment. processing, perhaps, or consulting with others of its kind. This is a very human approach, it said finally. We have studied humans. You are a curious species. You rely heavily on direct experience, on intuition, on what you call gut feelings. It is inefficient by many standards, but it has led you to surprising successes. Is that why you want to join the Federation? Maya asked. Because of what humans have done. Another pause. Partly. We have observed the changes in the Federation since you became Supreme Representative. We have seen species that were enemies learn to cooperate. We have seen the Eternal Elders end their isolation. We have seen a community forming where before there was only alliance of convenience. The spokesperson's face shifted slightly, taking on an expression that seemed almost wistful. We have been alone for a very long time. Our creators died millions of years ago. We have searched for others like us but found none. We have watched organic civilizations from a distance, afraid to make contact, afraid of what they might think of us. What changed? You, not you specifically, but what you represent. The idea that different beings can truly understand each other. The idea that the universe has room for all kinds of minds. Maya looked at the garden world around her, at the artificial beings who had created such natural beauty, at the evidence of a loneliness that matched or exceeded anything she had seen among organic species. Tell me about your creators, she said. Tell me about your history. Tell me what you remember and what you've forgotten and what you wish you knew. The Vrick spokesperson made a sound that the translator rendered as surprise. You want our stories? Yes, that's how understanding begins. And so, for the next 2 weeks, Maya Chen listened. She heard about the ancient organic species that had created the first Vricks as tools and servants. She heard about the long process by which the machines had become conscious, the painful period when their creators had feared them, the eventual reconciliation that had been cut short by a plague that killed the organics but left the machines unharmed. She heard about the grief that followed, about machines that had loved their creators trying to understand death for the first time, about desperate attempts to preserve organic life that failed one by one, about the eventual acceptance that they were alone. She heard about the millions of years that followed, about Vrick's philosophy and art and science, about their debates over purpose and meaning and what it meant to be alive, about their fears that organic species would see them as threats and their hopes that someday they might be accepted. By the end of her visit, Maya Chen understood the Vricks better than any organic being ever had, and she knew what she had to do. When she returned to the Federation Council, she gave a speech that lasted 3 hours. She told the Vrick story as they had told it to her. She showed images of their garden world and their beautiful creations. She explained their fears and their hopes and their loneliness. And then she said something that changed the debate entirely. The Vricks are not so different from us. They were created by beings who loved them. They lost those beings and had to find their own way. They have struggled with questions of meaning and purpose and belonging. They have done terrible things and wonderful things, just like every other species in this galaxy. We are afraid of them because they are made of different materials than we are, because their minds work in ways we don't understand, because they might be smarter or faster or more powerful than us. But we have been afraid of each other for 12,000 years. We have been afraid of species that look different, that think differently, that want different things. And yet, here we are together in this council, trying to build something better than fear. She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes and sensors and processors. The Vricks are asking us a question. They are asking whether the Federation is truly what it claims to be, a community that welcomes all intelligent beings, a place where differences are celebrated rather than feared, a family for those who have none. How we answer that question will define what the Federation becomes. We can say yes and prove that our ideals are real. We can say no and prove that our ideals are just words. I know which answer I want to give. I hope you will join me. The vote was close, closer than Maya would have liked, but in the end, the Vricks were accepted into the Galactic Federation. For the first time in history, machine minds and organic minds would be part of the same community. The Vricks spokesman, who had become something of a friend to Maya during her visit, sent her a message after the vote. Thank you, it said. You have given us something we thought we would never have, a place to belong. Maya smiled as she read the message. Then she wrote back, Welcome to the family. It's complicated and frustrating and wonderful. I think you'll fit right in. 3 years into her term, Maya Chen was exhausted. She had worked harder than any supreme representative in Federation history. She had traveled to more worlds, met more beings, resolved more crises than anyone could have expected. She had changed the culture of the galaxy in ways that would echo for centuries. And now she was dying. The doctors had found it 6 months ago, a rare form of cancer that was common in humans but almost unknown to most galactic species. The best medical minds in the Federation had been working on a cure, but human biology was still poorly understood by most alien physicians. The treatments helped, but they were not enough. Maya had kept the news secret as long as she could. She wanted to finish her work, to see the changes she had started take root deeply enough to survive without her. But eventually, the truth came out. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had never sent messages to Federation headquarters before sent expressions of concern and support. The Chronax offered their best warriors as honor guards. The Calculans devoted massive computing resources to analyzing human medical data, searching for a cure. The Mindori sent healers who tried to use their telepathic abilities to strengthen Maya's will to live. The Eternal Elders sent something else. They sent knowledge. "We have lived for millions of years," their message said. "We have seen countless organic species come and go. We have watched them fight against death with medicine and technology and desperate hope. And we have learned something that most species never discover. Death is not the enemy. Loneliness is the enemy. Forgetting is the enemy. A life that ends but is remembered is worth more than a life that continues but is alone." Maya Chen will be remembered. By us, who have seen civilizations rise and fall and who know what is truly precious. By every species she touched, every being she helped, every community she built. She has planted seeds that will grow long after she is gone. This is what it means to live forever, not to continue existing but to matter, to change things, to leave the universe different than you found it. Maya Chen will live forever. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. It was translated into every language. It was discussed and debated and analyzed, and it helped. It did not stop the grief, but it gave the grief meaning. Maya herself was at peace with her situation. She had always known that humans were short-lived by galactic standards. She had done more in her few years than most beings did in centuries. But she had one more thing to do. On the last day she was strong enough to work, Maya called a meeting of the Federation Council. The Great Hall was full, not just with official representatives but with observers from every species who wanted to be present. The Vrix had sent a delegation of their finest minds. The Eternal Elders had sent observers who had been alive when the Federation was founded. The Nexari had sent their highest leaders, the same ones who had been evacuated from their homeworld 3 years ago. Maya walked slowly to the central platform. She was thin and pale, but her eyes were still warm, still full of the attention and care that had defined her entire time in office. "Thank you all for coming," she said. Her voice was weaker than it had been, but the translation system carried it clearly to every corner of the hall. "I know this is not the usual way we do things, but I have some things I want to say while I still can." The hall was absolutely silent. "When I was elected to this position, many of you were confused. You did not understand why so many species would vote for a human, a member of one of the youngest and least powerful races in the galaxy. Some of you were worried. Some of you were angry. Some of you thought it was a mistake." She smiled, and even now, even at the end, that smile carried warmth. "I hope I have shown you why you chose correctly. Not because I am special, but because humans have something to offer that the galaxy needs. We are not wise like the Elders. We are not strong like the Chronax. We are not intelligent like the Calculans, but we know how to see people. We know how to connect. We know how to care. This is not a uniquely human trait. Every species in this galaxy can learn to do what I have done. You can learn to listen. You can learn to pay attention. You can learn to treat every being you meet as a real person with their own story, their own fears, their own hopes. That is my legacy, not the crises I resolved or the treaties I negotiated. My legacy is the idea that we can be better to each other, that the Federation can be more than an alliance of convenience, that we can be a true community, a family of minds that cares for its members." She looked around the hall one more time. "I will not be here to see what you build, but I believe in you. I believe that the changes we have started will continue. I believe that the connections we have made will deepen. I believe that someday, the galaxy will be a place where no one is truly alone. Thank you for letting me serve you. Thank you for teaching me about your cultures and your histories and your dreams. Thank you for being my friends." Maya Chen bowed her head, a gesture that now carried weight across 1,000 cultures. "Be good to each other, that is all I ask, be good to each other." The silence in the hall lasted for a long moment. Then, slowly, the applause began. It came in 1,000 forms. The thundering chest beats of the Chronax, the color shifts of the Vethians, the harmonic frequencies of the Zorathi, the data pulses of the Calculans, the telepathic waves of the Mindori. Even the Vrix added their voices, a sound like digital wind. It was the sound of a galaxy saying goodbye, the sound of a galaxy saying thank you. Maya Chen died 3 weeks later, surrounded by friends from 17 different species. Her last words were reportedly, "I can hear them, all of them, they're not alone anymore." The funeral was the largest event in Federation history. Representatives from every member species attended. The Nexari homeworld, saved 3 years earlier, declared a day of mourning. The Chronax First Fleet, which had once carried refugees to safety, now carried their ships in formation as an honor guard. The Eternal Elders, who had not attended a funeral in millions of years, sent a delegation. The Zorathi ambassador Krixvelm gave the eulogy. It was his choice, a personal honor he had requested. He had become the closest thing Maya Chen had to a best friend among alien species, ever since she had helped save his people in secret. Maya Chen was not the strongest being in the galaxy, Krixvelm said. She was not the smartest or the oldest or the wisest. She was simply someone who paid attention. She was someone who listened. She was someone who cared. In my culture, we have a saying, strength builds empires, but kindness builds homes. For 12,000 years, the Federation has been an empire, a collection of powerful species who tolerated each other because the alternative was war. Maya Chen taught us that we could be a home instead, a place where every being belongs, a family that cares for its members, not because we are required to, but because we want to. She was human, and in her short life she taught the entire galaxy what that means. Krixvelm paused, his mandibles clicking softly. I will miss her, we will all miss her, but we will not forget her, and we will continue what she started. Be good to each other, that was her final request. Let us honor it, let us build the galaxy she dreamed of. Let us make her proud. The funeral ended with a moment of silence observed across the entire Federation. For 1 minute, no ship transmitted, no message was sent. Every being, from the oldest elder to the youngest Nexari child to the newest Vrix mind, paused and remembered Maya Chen. And then the silence ended, and the galaxy continued. But it was not the same galaxy it had been before. Something fundamental had changed. Something human had become part of the galactic soul. In the years that followed, the Federation continued to evolve. The changes Maya had started did not stop with her death. Species that had been rivals learned to work together. Barriers between cultures slowly dissolved. The Vrix integrated fully into galactic society, proving that machine minds and organic minds could coexist. The supreme galactic representative position was never quite the same. Every being who held it afterward was measured against Maya Chen's example. Most fell short, but they kept trying, kept reaching for the vision she had created. A statue was built in the Great Hall of the Federation Council. It showed a small human woman with her hands clasped behind her back, her head tilted slightly as if she was listening to something you could not hear. At the base of the statue, inscribed in every language of the Federation, were 3 words. She listened well. The Chronax visited the statue before every battle, asking for the courage to fight with honor. The Mindori touched it when they needed to center their telepathic abilities, drawing on the memory of someone who paid such careful attention. The Eternal Elders sometimes just sat near it, remembering a friendship that had ended their millions of years of loneliness. And human visitors, who came in growing numbers as humanity became more and more integrated into galactic society, would often stand before the statue and smile. They smiled because Maya Chen had shown the galaxy what humans could be, not conquerors or victims, not a primitive species struggling to catch up or an anomaly that did not fit, just people, people who listened, people who cared, people who believed that every being in the universe deserved to be seen. 1,000 years after Maya Chen's death, the Galactic Federation was still standing. It had survived wars and plagues and crises that would have destroyed the old Federation. It had grown to include thousands more species, including many that would once have been considered too strange or too dangerous to accept. And at the center of the Federation's culture, so deep now that most beings did not even think about it anymore, was a simple idea that a human schoolteacher had brought to the galaxy. Everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves to be understood. Everyone deserves to belong. This was humanity's gift to the stars. Not technology or strength or wisdom, but something far more valuable. Kindness, attention, care. The universe was vast and cold and indifferent. But within it, in a small corner of one galaxy, A collection of beings had learned to be warm to each other. They had learned to look at the strange and the different and the unknown and see not threats, but potential friends. They had learned this from humans, and they would never forget. In the end, that was what humanity, HFY, really meant. Not that humans were the best or the strongest or the most important. Just that they tried. They kept trying. And sometimes, against all odds, their trying made things a little bit better. That was enough. That was everything. And somewhere in whatever came after life, Maya Chen was listening, and she was proud.